Well, fiction. And I did grow up without a dad, and I had to find him, and I found him living in Paris. He was living as an American expat in Paris, kind of a weird place. And this is back in 1993 when you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have the internet. You had to really like send letters to people.
You had to find,
you had
to
call
really
people
dig
long
and
distance,
find.
and we couldn't find him for years. You know, it was just one of those things he left, and I really wanted to find him because I
When
thought
did he
it would,
leave, though?
He left in 1977.
How old were you?
I was really young. I was 12.
You were 12.
I was a baby, yeah.
Yeah, but he was a part of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's different if you had left when you were like 3 or 4,
Right.
but he had an influence already in your...
But he traveled, and he
Right.
did influence me, because to this day I travel a lot for my job.
Right.
And he was always getting on a plane. And that's all I remember, was he was always leaving and coming back. So hence my abandonment deal was I would always date men that lived out of state. Guys in New York, I lived in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. So guys in California, always. And I was like, I've got to reconcile this. Plus, I've always believed in God, whether I have a very deep faith in God. And I knew that somehow they were connected. And somebody once told me, the way you perceive God is the way you perceive your father. And my father was cold, aloof, distant, and always leaving. And that's the way I always perceived God. So I figured, okay, A, I need to stop dating guys out of state. B, I've got to think of God as more than something way over there.
Okay, but how did you even get to that point? How did you figure out that you had to make these choices, or you had to shift your choices?
Well, I think we're all on different journeys, and I knew
Right.
something wasn't quite right. I wasn't your typical, kid growing up in the suburbs, with a mom and the dad and the brother and the sister. My mom.
What's
was,
a typical kid growing up in the suburbs?
This day and age, back then there was a typical,
Right.
and now there isn't. But I was like, I guess, a pioneer back then, right?
Cool.
Which
cool.
is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, because
we love that.
Stronger.
We love pioneers here. That's right.
Exactly.
That's where your strength comes from.
Absolutely.
All right, and the pioneering part comes from whatever drama it is that actually led you to think about it, because
Yes.
really that's all that's required, is to think about it.
And I did a lot of thinking.
Okay.
I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of research, and I also had to dig into my soul. What's right, what's wrong. So, strangely enough, there's an old saying. When the teacher is ready, the student appears, and the door is open. And when it was time for me to find him, I was in college, and I really just figured this was just a done deal. I wasn't going to ever find him. Well, suddenly, Mom sent a Christmas card to some friends of his. Hey, you know what? We know where he is. Just out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in 15 years. So suddenly
Just out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
Yeah, but you put that out there into the
Exactly.
universe, and it just took
Exactly.
the actual conspiring took its time to get to you, because you needed to be ready.
Exactly. And I was, ready to meet him, and I took a flight, booked. I had never been to Europe, never been out of the country, booked a flight, went out, met him face to face, and he was not what I thought he would be. It was not a happily ever after story. He was an alcoholic. He was hanging out in the French cafes, drinking and yeah, whatever. Exactly. Whatever. English is the language of business. Whatever he would say.
What was it?
He used to always say English is the language of business. It was
English
really
is
funny.
the language of business.
Yeah,
Wow,
I'm like, je parle petit français, so I tried.
Good
Yeah,
one.
but anyway, so I'm like, I'm in a foreign country. My father's crazy, and I'm like, now what? And I barely
Right.
speak. I have my Berlitz guide. I'm walking around, je parle petit français. But it was interesting because I was challenged to rise above the circumstance and just make something of it. So a friend of mine came out to meet me. I was there for a month. He came out 2.5 weeks into the trip, and I went home, kind of like, wow, this isn't going to be the quick fix I hoped it would be. I just so hoped I was going to meet my dad and everything was going to be fine, and it wasn't. And I had to just realize, okay, he's made decisions. He's a human being. He's made decisions that I wouldn't make, that I would never make.
Right.
Especially with children. I would never leave children. I just wouldn't do that.
How does this lead into your book? Because your book is fiction.
It's based on this
Obviously,
experience.
right.
Yeah.
It's inspired by
Exactly.
your true story.
Right.
But it's fiction.
Exactly. I had to change the names, obviously, of
Right,
people. And
right, to protect the
events.
innocent.
Exactly.
Or something
had to
like
combine
that.
a few characters, too. A couple
Cool.
old boyfriends got combined.
Got it.
Make the
Good.
perfect guy.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Nice.
No,
We like that. Nice. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Because, they only live in our heads.
Exactly.
Anyway, no. I didn't
Oh, yeah.
say
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. It's like you go out with 3 different, at the time when I was single, I'm married now, but at the time you go out with 3 different people for one result, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, well, this one had that. This one
Yeah.
has this. And then, perfect.
Yeah, bring them all together.
Yeah,
It
right.
Doesn't work
so
that
you,
way.
you have them in the book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
nice,
So yeah, it kind
nice,
of worked out, but
nice.
he wasn't a perfect character in the old boyfriend. There was a
Right,
couple
right,
old boyfriends
right.
that kind of came to play in the book.
So the growing up, Finding Daddy, Finding Me
yeah,
is actually a book that you wrote. I'm gathering from what you just shared. Coming back after having met with your father,
Yes,
and possibly writing it in a journal form.
it's sort of, it chronicles
Like
the whole
release.
experience, and that's, I kind of went back, you know, growing up, and I went through a lot of counseling, and my counselor is in the book. She loved it. You know, her name is Dr. Nelson, and she walks me through the different steps. You know, so how did you feel when this happened? So then what happened? So she kind of she's the mainstay throughout the book. You know, she chronicles the whole experience.
So if a person reads that, what exactly are you sending as a message? Because obviously this is something that you put out there to kind of help somebody.
You know what? Even when the cards are stacked against you, which they were at that point in my life when I was younger, you know, I was destined to be a statistic. You know, growing up without a dad, right? I was, you know, and he was, the dad I remembered was not a nice guy. He was abusive.
Right.
So I had to, you know, kind of get around that, and I didn't want to be a statistic. I wanted to find him. I wanted to resolve it, and I wrote the book to let other people know that maybe they're adopted or maybe they don't have a parent living with them. It's all right. You can still be successful. You can still do whatever you want in your life, especially if you believe you can, because that's what it's about. You know, we shape our experience on this planet by our choices and our thoughts.
Yes, yes.
You know?
You're absolutely right. It shifts everything.
Exactly.
And based on my introduction of you, in you initially wanting to reconcile with your father, and then realizing who you really needed to reconcile with was
God. Absolutely. Because I was so mad at God. You know, it's God's fault that this happened to me. And that wasn't right. You know, we all make choices. God gives everybody on this planet two things: 24 hours in a day and the power of choice.
Right.
So,
Beautiful.
and that's how you can reconcile everybody's choices with your own life.
That's how you can reconcile life.
Yeah, you just turn around yourself. So what am I going to do with my 24 hours and the power of choice?
Exactly.
Write a book. Hopefully other people will say, wow, I like fiction. Let me check it out. And you know, so I enjoy fiction. So that's why I wrote it in fiction form.
Beautiful. We are so honored to have you here. And of course, the name of the book is Finding Daddy, Finding Me, and it's Christine Alpari. And where can they get it?
Yes.
Amazon.com.
Sorry.
Amazon.com,
yes, it's on my website,
right?
www.christinealperi.com. I'm Facebook, Twitter, all that, and then Google.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we're really glad that you came here, and I'm glad you're sharing this story.
Thank you so
I'm sure
much.
it will change lives.
Yes, I hope so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Christine Alpari, everybody. Make sure you check her out at ChristineAlpari.com. And, of course, the book, you can find it at Amazon.com. All right, we got to take a quick break because coming up, it's sports. And, you know, the Yankees are in town. So I guess Bobby's got all the scoop. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.